Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Wonderful to have all of you here. So I'm sitting in a different place here in my Ashland home, and I'm sitting here because I wanted to show you something that I think illustrates what we attempt or how we attempt to live in the perceptual world with our perceptual or egoic mind. And it's a clock that I've owned for many years. And I want you to look at that clock and see what you notice. If you look closely, you're going to see a lot of little metal men turning the handles, spinning the dials, keeping time going. As you can see, it's 7 o'clock. And so everyone is doing their job. Unfortunately, there's one guy here at the bottom who's supposed to be going up that little spiral, but he can't quite make it anymore. But other than that, as you can see, I'll get a little closer. All of the little men are doing their job. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting when you think about it from the perspective of each one of us? Let me see, someone got unmuted here. If you could make sure you're muted, someone I could hear. There we go. I'll do it here. So each one of us is like that, one of those little men turning that wheel of time, keeping that clock going, making it real. All the while, a whole universe of now is going on around it that has very little to do with time, very little to do with keeping those wheels spinning, keeping that clock turning. And this is why we say, only love, only God, only now. Because when we live in that space, it doesn't matter what happens with those guys spinning on that clock. The world is going to go on all around us. There'll be people all around us who are thinking that they still need to keep turning those dials and keeping those things moving in order to keep that clock turning. And yet we sit completely unaffected in love. And this is what we might call the enlightened heart. Now, some of you may remember that in the Yeshua Code book, originally the book was called The Art of Spiritual Peacemaking, but we put it out a few years ago, again, called the Yeshua Code. It's a beautiful collection of wisdom from an experience that I had, 20 or something years ago. And one of the things that it talks about, which I think is perhaps the most valuable in the whole collection, are the 3 enlightenments. And one could say that this is the stage in which we enter into our whole enlightened self. Our whole enlightened self. Because it's every part of us. And it begins with the first stage, which is the illumined mind. When something clicks into place in our mind, and suddenly a light envelops that which may have hidden in shadows, almost like the analogy that we sometimes use of living in a very dark room that has shuttered windows so no light whatsoever can get in. And suddenly one of those shutters falls down and the light comes streaming into the room. And now you can see. Well, that's the illumined mind. All the things that we were feeling and trying to figure out, thinking that they were monsters or demons, we realize, no, it's just a chair or it's just a bookshelf. Because now we can see everything has been illumined. And then once that happens in the illumined mind, we move in to the awakened heart. The awakened heart. And this is a natural expansion. After the illumination of the mind, it has to fall down into the heart in supreme and divine compassion. And finally, when these two things muse, the illumined mind and the awakened heart, we enter into the realized soul. This is the final step into mastery. When everything fuses as one, we see through that whole enlightened consciousness that we are. So, in that light, I have a couple of things that I'm going to share with you today before we bring Vicky and Penny Honey on. And the first is I want to share a song that I wrote and recorded. It's called The Enlightened Heart. And I thought it might be a nice little break for us just to relax into, so we don't get too intellectual. We don't get too much into our mind, thinking that there's something we need to do. Thinking that there's something that we need to do is what interrupts the illumined mind. When we realize there's nothing left to do except to be everything, and then the illumination of the mind occurs on its own. That covering on the window falls away on its own, and finally we can see. So I want to share this with you, and then we'll talk a little bit more. So enjoy. You could hear that. Chris was letting me know that it was difficult to hear, at least at Namaste Village, so I apologize for that, but hopefully the rest of you could hear it okay. Give me a thumbs up if you could hear it okay on Zoom. All right. Looks like the Zoomers got it okay. So let's just take a deep breath now. Enlighten my heart. These words came from St. Francis, as you saw. It was one of his prayers, and this was the prayer of one who is an awakened heart, an enlightened whole self. And this is what we are called to as well. by simply getting off that time wheel, by setting down those spokes and all of those wheels that we have to turn or that we think that we have to keep turning in order to keep the world going. And the truth is, everything will go on just fine without us turning those wheels. All we need to do is to relax. So the meditation that I like to do when I'm just sitting here, let's say in that 15 minutes before session, this is what helps me to get off that time wheel. It's something that I learned many years ago. So I'll share it with you really quick, and if there's a way that you would like to adopt this into your life, you're very welcome to. So I breathe in and out, and as I breathe in, the word that I choose, which represents the divine, is beloved. So I breathe in thinking beloved. Then as I take the next breath out, I say, thank you for my life. And as I breathe in again, I think, exactly as it is. And then on the final breath out, now. So, beloved, thank you for my life, exactly as it is. Now. This is an opening to the heart and to the whole self, because it is so different than what we would expect in the world of change, where everything changes and must change and nothing is going quite the way we think it should. This is the acknowledgement that everything is whole and perfect now. All I need to do is to let go of my need to change, my need to judge, my need to make it into something else, something new, something different. You can choose whatever word you want. For me, beloved seems to capture the feeling and the energy of my beloved. Some of you may say father or mother or creator, whatever it is that works. For me, it's beloved as I breathe in. Thank you for my life, exactly as it is. There's nothing that needs to change. There's nothing that needs to be different. Exactly as it is right now. There's a freedom that is awakened through that chant, through that prayer, that allows me to enter perfectly into the now, without need to change or expectations, just full, loving acceptance. So that being said, with this and also the prayer, Awaken My Heart, I wrote a little something that I want to share before I bring on the others. So let me bring this up on the screen, because as I sometimes do, I like to print it out so you can read it along with me. So this is a little document called Enlighten My Heart. An enlightened heart is not something that needs to be achieved as much as remembered. In the quiet recognition that love is already present beneath every fear, judgment, and story we tell ourselves about who we are. It is the quiet recognition that love is already present. That's the key. Love is always present, if I would but open my eyes to see. From this perspective, the heart becomes a place of gentle seeing rather than defense. It is no longer asking, how do I protect myself? But instead, rests in the certainty that nothing real can be threatened. When the heart awakens in this way, forgiveness stops being a moral effort and becomes a natural response. I love that. Forgiveness stops being a moral effort and becomes a natural response. What once felt like an attack is reinterpreted as a call for love, and the need to be right dissolves into the deeper need to be free. And we could also say to be happy, the deeper need to be happy. The value of such a heart is immeasurable because it restores, guess what? True perception. The world may look the same on the surface, and it always does, but it is no longer interpreted through fear or separation. It's the interpretation that changes everything. Relationships now become classrooms for remembering innocence rather than battlegrounds for the ego's survival. An enlightened heart does not deny pain, but it refuses to grant pain the authority to define reality. Isn't that beautiful? It refuses to grant pain the authority to define reality. It listens to a quieter inner guidance that consistently leads toward peace, teaching that peace is not the result of changed circumstances, but the result of a changed mind. The result of a changed mind. In this remembering, the heart becomes a stable home, where love is no longer something sought, but something extended effortlessly, because it is finally known as what we are. Finally known as exactly who and what each one of us is, an extension of love itself, radiating out in every direction. We don't receive this love and then try and keep it for ourselves. It has to move through us. We have to be instruments of peace to let that light radiate out in every direction, to touch and to heal, to bless. Everything then becomes an extension of the reality that is forever real, the truth that is forever true, exactly who you are now. So, once again, we can get off that wheel. We can stop trying to turn all those knobs and dials and return to love. So that's my message. And I'll turn it over to our dear Vicki, and she'll take it from there. Good morning, Vicki.
Good morning, Brother James. Good morning, everyone. And I want to say, first of all, thank you to everyone that joined last night in a song to Linda. Over half the room was there last night singing to Linda, who's been in the hospital for months now, and singing of her love of the truth that we are. And it was the most pristine example of if we want an awakened heart of love, we love. Love is the teacher. Love is the experience that stabilizes us and gives us the certainty that love is all that's real. Love, when we experience it, becomes the rock of our own being. And I would say, true, in my own experience too, there are two ways. The first is always silence, not because there's some moral thing against noise and chatter and sound, but because all of the noise represents effort. All of it represents trying rather than being. And the ego thrives on efforting. And we have kind of convinced ourselves that our best efforts get things done and change things. But the most that happens is we arrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. nothing really changes, because change happens at a different place, at a fundamental place within us. And when we fall into being quiet, quiet means stop the chatter in our mind of effort. You'll notice it's always, oh, I could do this better. They could do this better. This would change and make this. That's effort. Effort belongs to the world of illusions. When we drop that and we drop into quiet, into stillness, we drop into what is reality. It's natural that when the cover up is no longer covering, the chatter is no longer covering up what is already there, what's already there shines effortlessly. And we become the experience of the shining love that we are one with, that we are all part of. And there is no effort in it, because the nature of love is rejoicing, it's giving of itself, it is radiating, it is being, it's celebration at its best. And so by being quiet, stopping the figuring, the looking for solutions, the chatter, it's that simple. It's that simple when that's all we want. When we want two things, we're going to keep the chatter. It's really that simple. When we only want one thing, I really want the peace of God. I want, what does an awakened heart want? It wants to know that it is the living peace of God. When that's all I want, there is no more, this is how I can do it, this is how I can get it. There's a total, it's a surrender of all the chatter and the effort. And it's a resting in to love. That's why the image of a mother's love is so perfect. The mother takes care of the infant. The infant is defenseless. When we become defenseless and stop the chatter of effort and rest into love, we receive what we already are. And there is no ego or personality that can lessen it when that's all we want. That goes back to desire. And then when we're brought into situations, it does bring, like what Jimmy said, it brings vision of compassion. It's inevitable that we look upon the world and we see calls for help rather than enemies. It's inevitable because it's the nature of love. And when we come into an experience like we did last night of loving one another, all of us were joined to love Linda. It was a profound experience for everyone, and for Linda as well as David, her husband, but for each of us, because it was palpable. When it's palpable like that, there's no uncertainty. When we love fully from what we already are, certainty comes with the territory, and it springs us forth into a sweetness where we live by this grace, and we want to live by this grace all the time rather than effort. So, Brother James, and I want to thank you for coming and singing last night. Thank you all for coming. It was a profound experience of joining and of the certainty that love is all there is, only love, only God, and only now. Thank you. Love you.
Thank you, Vicky. You know, as you were speaking, I had the image in my mind of an infant suckling at the breast of her mother, and the contentment and just the peace on the face of that baby, wanting nothing else but to be with her source, to be receiving that sacred energy from the mother. That's a beautiful image. And Vicky, I'm curious, what do you think of my clock? I don't think this is something you've ever seen before.
No,
No,
I
I
never
never
saw
saw
it,
it,
but I
but I
love
love
it.
it.
I thought you might like that.
I do.
Okay, Penny Honey, why don't you wrap us up and take us home?
Well, welcome home. So, that clock, James, I'm curious if I can have a conversation with those little men, because I'd like for them to give me a couple of extra hours today. I could use it. Can they build that for me? And if you think about it, Time, of course, is a man-made construct. I didn't have enough time to get into my prayer life. I didn't have enough time to meditate. I didn't have enough time. How many things have we given the responsibility of not completing because we didn't have enough time? So get those guys in double time and let's make some more, because it sounds to me like we just need more of that, right? The value we give to that. And see, this is the catch, is that in this man-made dream that we've created, this escape from what is real, we create tools and weapons like time. However, it is very useful to get to the airport on time, isn't it? See, this is where we jump back and forth. At least I do. That moving in and out, and really the only moment that we can ever experience in this construct of time that we've created is now. Now is the only time. And the awakened heart can only be in that moment. It's not in our past. It's not something to look forward to. It's who we are. It's recognizing that in this now moment, we are the awakened heart. We are the illumined mind. The only little glitch is we don't always realize the depth of our soul. We just can't quite give ourselves enough credit to know that we are this now. And no matter how fast those little men on James's clock work, they're never going to create another one of these. Now. I'm not sure where we think we should come into our illumined mind, or when we should recognize our awakened heart and realize, live a realized soul. Do you want to schedule that for next Tuesday? Shall we book that? Right now. Here it is. Right now. This little thing jumped out at me while you all were talking, and I love the idea of a song for Linda. I love the idea of a song for each of us. And I hold that in my heart with you. Eckhart Tolle said this in Stillness Speaks. He said, I am not my thoughts, my emotions, my sense perceptions and experiences. I am not the content of my life. I am life. I am the space in which all things happen. I am consciousness. I am the now. I am. And you am too. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Benny, honey. You were talking about depth. I really like that. And as you were speaking about that, I had an image of the vast ocean and the unimaginable depth of that ocean. And the deeper we dive into that ocean of grace, the less meaning time has. When we're at the surface, the waves are lifting us up and down. It's very tumultuous, and we can see the sun as it moves and tells us what time it is. But the deeper we go, the less connection we have with all of those changing tides and the way that the planets move, telling us that you only have a certain amount of time. The deeper we dive into that unfathomable grace, the less we remember all the limitations that once held us. And we are lifted into a space of such amazing beauty and holiness that time could never even come close to achieving. And to that we say, Amen, 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 e punto. Blessings to you all. Tomorrow I will be stepping back and letting Penny and Vicky take it, and then I'll be back on Friday for the wrap-up. So we'll see you all then. Have a blessed day. Namaste.